I remember the first time I saw her, it was a scene so raw and unforgettable that it still replays in my mind whenever I walk past that old schoolyard. My name is Aaron, and back then, I wasn't a hero, not even close. I was just another face in the crowd, another student who watched things happen and told himself he couldn't do anything to stop them. But that day changed me. That day I saw what true courage looked like, and it didn't come from the strongest or the loudest. It came from the new girl, a quiet soul who walked into our school with a backpack too big for her small frame, eyes that tried to stay hidden, and a heart far stronger than anyone could have imagined. And if you stick with me to the very end, you'll understand why I had to tell this story, because what she did next made even the toughest bullies run. The morning had begun like any other, laughter echoing through the halls, cliques clustering in their little groups, whispers traveling faster than wildfire whenever someone new showed up. That was the day Emma arrived, skin pale from the cold morning air, clothes simple but neat, her sneakers not brand name but spotless. She walked with the kind of nervous energy that made her a target from the second she stepped through the gates. Everyone could see it. And everyone, including me, could sense the way the bullies' eyes lit up when they caught sight of her. In our school, new faces were always tested, always pushed until they either broke down or proved they were untouchable. And Emma? She looked fragile, like she would snap under the slightest pressure. By lunchtime, the whispers had already twisted into mockery. Kids laughed at her accent, at the fact that her lunch was homemade and not from the cafeteria, at the way she tucked her hair behind her ears whenever someone stared too long. But the real storm didn't come until that afternoon, when the bullies, led by the infamous trio of Shane, Kyle, and Brianna, cornered her in the schoolyard. I was standing there, too far away to help, too cowardly to even move. The other students gathered, pretending they didn't care but watching all the same, waiting for the cruelty they'd come to expect. And then, in an act of humiliation so cruel it made even my stomach turn, Shane turned on the yard hose, its cold spray bursting like a weapon, and aimed it straight at Emma. The water drenched her instantly, soaking her clothes, plastering her hair to her face. Laughter roared through the crowd as Kyle and Brianna clapped like it was the funniest show in town. Emma shivered, her lips trembling not just from the icy water but from the shock, the shame, the helplessness of being put on display. I remember the moment her backpack fell to the ground, water dripping from its edges, her books ruined, her dignity shredded by a single cruel act. And I did nothing. I watched, frozen, as the bullies hosed her down like she wasn't even human. But what came next is what made me lean in, what made everyone hold their breath. Because instead of collapsing, instead of crying, Emma stood tall. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the water hit her, then opened them with a glare so fierce it silenced the laughter. She bent down, picked up her soaked backpack, and walked slowly toward Shane. He sneered, expecting her to cower or beg. Instead, with hands steady despite her trembling body, she reached out, grabbed the hose, and yanked it from his grip with a sudden strength none of us expected. The shock on Shane's face was priceless, but it wasn't just that Emma didn't spray him. She didn't stoop to his level. Instead, she turned the hose on herself, raised it high, and let the water pour over her like she was washing away every insult, every laugh, every cruel whisper. The schoolyard went silent. The bullies looked confused, the crowd unsure whether to laugh or feel guilty. Emma dropped the hose, water dripping from her clothes but fire blazing in her eyes. She whispered, loud enough for Shane to hear but quiet enough to make everyone lean closer, "You don't get to break me." And then she walked away, leaving them speechless. It was the first time I realized real power didn't come from fists or fear, it came from resilience. But I had no idea that what she would do next, in the days that followed, would shake the very foundation of that school. And by the time it was over, the bullies who once laughed would be the ones running the next morning. I expected Emma to stay hidden. Most kids who suffered that kind of humiliation would avoid eye contact, skip school, or melt into the background until people forgot. But Emma was different. She walked into the building wearing the same neat clothes, hair combed, head held higher than the day before. Whispers followed her, of course, but something had shifted. It wasn't just her, they were whispers of confusion, even respect. She had taken their cruelest weapon and turned it into a shield, and people were starting to see her differently. But Shane, Kyle, and Brianna weren't about to let it go. Their pride had been wounded, and wounded bullies are the most dangerous kind. That afternoon, they struck again, this time cornering Emma by the lockers. I was there, lingering, pretending to tie my shoes, but really watching with my heart in my throat. Shane shoved her shoulder, Kyle blocked her path, and Brianna sneered, asking if she wanted another shower. Emma stood her ground, eyes steady. And then, in a move none of us expected, she reached into her soaked backpack from yesterday and pulled out one of her ruined books. Its pages were warped, ink smeared, cover bent. She held it up and said, "This is what you destroyed yesterday. But you know what? I stayed up all night rewriting every single page. You can ruin my things, but you can't ruin me." Her voice didn't shake. Her words echoed. And something incredible happened. The crowd, usually silent or complicit, began to murmur. A few kids even nodded. Emma wasn't just defending herself anymore, she was inspiring others. The bullies shifted uneasily, realizing the tide was turning. Over the next week, Emma became a quiet force in the school. She helped kids who were usually picked on, sat with loners at lunch, and refused to be intimidated. Her bravery spread like wildfire, igniting courage in places it had never existed before. And then came the moment that made even the bullies run. One Friday, Shane tried one last time to break her, this time in front of the entire gym during assembly. He mocked her, called her names, tried to embarrass her in front of teachers and students alike. But Emma, calm as ever, stepped forward and spoke into the microphone meant for announcements. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She simply told the truth. Being new is hard. Being different is harder. But nothing is harder than watching cruelty happen and saying nothing. Yesterday, you laughed when they hosed me down. Today, I stand here dry, strong, and unbroken. And if you're tired of fear, stand with me. The silence that followed was earth-shaking. Then, slowly, students began to clap. One by one, kids rose from the bleachers, standing with Emma, until the entire gym echoed with applause. Shane's smirk faltered. Brianna turned red. Kyle muttered something and tried to slip out the side door. They had lost their audience. Their power was gone. And for the first time, the bullies ran not because Emma had fought them, but because she had taken away their stage. I'll never forget that day. It was the day I learned what bravery truly looks like. And now, as I stand here years later, telling you this story, I realize Emma didn't just change our school, she changed me. She taught me that silence helps the oppressor, but a single voice can break chains. So if you're listening, remember this: no matter who you are, no matter what they do to you, strength isn't in revenge, it's in resilience. And yes, I kept my promise. I told you I'd be here at the end, and here I am. But now it's your turn. Drop a comment below and tell me, what would you have done in Emma's shoes? And don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be heard by the world.